sleep good last night. Anxiety too much. Sometimes you can be totally exhausted, and then you wake up to go potty in the middle of the night. Ugh. It takes you hours to go back to sleep. So I had to pop it at like 4 a.m. just to go back to sleep for a couple hours. So now it's 8 something. I'm still so tired.
Now, on the west side of the state, the Ottawa County Sheriff confirms tonight that the deaths of a family of 8 are being investigated as a murder-suicide.
The husband suspected of killing his wife and 6 children, ranging in age from 5 to 15.
It's just past 8:30 in the morning, and a fire crew is standing outside a beautiful 5-bedroom home on Riverside Trail in Grand Haven Township, Michigan. Neighbors called about the smell of smoke, but when firefighters walk the property, they find nothing. No flames, no visible damage. So they leave. 3 hours later, the same street. But this time smoke is pouring out of the windows. White, thick, visible from the road. And when crews finally break through that door, they don't just find a fire. They find 8 bodies. A husband, a wife, 6 children, ages 5 to 15. Every single one of them shot. Every single one of them found in a separate bedroom. And somebody, after pulling every trigger, walked through that house and set it on fire in multiple places, like they were trying to erase what they'd just done. Before we go further into this one, I need 30 seconds of your time. Somewhere out there right now, a family is dealing with something just as dark as what we're about to talk about, and stories like this only get told because people like you keep watching, keep sharing, keep showing up. If this channel means anything to you, hit subscribe, tap that bell, and drop a like before we go any further. It genuinely helps keep this kind of storytelling alive, and it helps get real cases in front of the people who need to understand them. Okay, let's get into who these people actually were. Amanda Karolkiewicz went by Mandy. She was 39 years old, and by every outward account, she was the kind of person who made a room feel warmer just by walking into it. Her cousin described her as someone who was funny, optimistic, spunky, the type of person whose arrival meant your day was about to get better. She worked as a substitute teacher in the Grand Haven School District, at a school that specifically praised her for going above and beyond with kids who were having a hard day. Empathy, patience, that was her reputation, not just at home, but professionally with other people's children. She married Kris in what sounds like the classic story. They met at a beverage company back in 2008. Started dating that summer, and built an entire life together. For biological sons over the years, and then more recently, 2 adopted daughters, both 11 years old. Just over a week before her death, Mandy posted on TikTok that she and the girls were coming home for what she called the trip of a lifetime, a trip to China. She was excited. She said something like, "We are so ready to be home sweet home." That's the last public trace of her joy that exists. Now, here's where it gets complicated, and I want to be upfront that not everything here is confirmed. Years before any of this happened, a Reddit account surfaced under the username MandyK1179. Journalists at the Detroit News say they cross-checked details in the post, marriage timeline, ages, job history, and found them consistent enough with Mandy's real life that the account appears to genuinely be hers. But nobody can prove with total certainty that Mandy wrote every word. Even Mandy's own family has said publicly that they can't confirm it was her. With that caveat out of the way, here's what those posts allegedly described. A woman writing, sometimes years apart, about a marriage that from the outside looked picture perfect, but privately felt like something she was constantly working to hold together. In one post, she describes an affair, allegedly Kris cheating on her with a younger co-worker at a previous job. She wrote about the anger that never fully left her, saying something like, "Even their deepest sorrow doesn't come close to matching the permanent damage they cause when they cheat." In another post, she talks about marriage counseling and how it seemed to leave her husband more frustrated than helped. She describes him getting upset, almost offensive, over what she called a completely normal question from the counselor, one that was just asking if he'd actually listened to her. If this is really Mandy's writing, it paints a picture of a woman who stayed, who forgave or tried to, who once wrote that she loved her kids more than she, in that moment, felt about her husband, and that she was faking her way through it until things got better. She said they were years out from the affair and doing better, but that it was still In her words, a fight to stay in a healthy place. That's not the language of someone blindly happy. That's the language of someone who made a conscious, exhausting choice to keep a family together year after year for the sake of 6 kids. So who was Kris? 47 years old. Worked remotely as a national vice president of sales and marketing for the American Heart Association, specifically for the division that trains people in CPR and first aid. Think about that for a second. A man whose entire career, at least at the end, revolved around an organization built on saving lives. And here's the detail that's been spreading fast since this story broke. His employment with that organization ended earlier in July, just weeks before he killed his entire family. The organization confirmed it, but wouldn't say why. They wouldn't call a firing, wouldn't call a resignation, just that his employment ended. Now I want to be really careful here, because a lot of headlines have jumped straight to job loss as the trigger. That's a tempting narrative. Man loses career, man snaps. But investigators haven't confirmed that connection, and psychologically, it's rarely that simple. Job loss doesn't turn someone into a person capable of shooting 6 children in their own bedrooms. If it's a factor at all, it's more likely one piece of a much bigger, much older pattern of stress, shame, and control that had probably been building for years, maybe going all the way back to whatever happened with that alleged affair. And that's where the psychology really gets interesting to me. If the Reddit posts are accurate, you have a marriage that survived betrayal on the surface, but where the wound never actually closed. Mandy's own words, if they're hers, suggest she carried resentment she couldn't fully let go of, while also staying committed to preserving the family unit. Meanwhile, you have Kris, a man who by her account struggled in counseling, got defensive, seemed almost unable to sit with basic accountability. That's a pattern worth sitting with. Someone who can't tolerate being confronted, even gently, even by a professional whose entire job is to help him. What happens to a person like that when their career, their sense of competence and provider identity suddenly collapses too, when the last pillar holding up their self-image gets pulled out from under them? Now let's talk about the timeline, because this is where the case turns genuinely disturbing. Investigators believe the killings likely started late Thursday night and carried into early Friday morning. That means there was time, hours potentially, time for hesitation, time for a change of mind, time for someone in that house to wake up, to realize something was wrong. And yet every single family member, 6 kids ranging from 5 to 15, was found in a different bedroom, not gathered together, not in one place, like a single act of chaos, separated, room by room. That detail alone tells you something about how deliberate, how methodical this was. This wasn't one uncontrollable moment of rage. This was someone moving through a house with purpose. And then the fire. Investigators say it was intentionally set in multiple different locations throughout the home, on the first floor and down in the basement, after the shootings had already happened. Why set a fire after everyone is already dead? Was it an attempt to destroy evidence? Was it some twisted final act, an attempt to erase the house itself, as if burning the walls could burn away what happened inside them? Or was it something even darker, a kind of ritualistic ending, a way of making sure nothing of that life, the house, the family, the version of himself he used to be, survived past that morning? Here's the detail that still doesn't sit right with investigators or with me. Neighbors reported the smell of smoke hours before the fire was actually visible, which means whatever was happening inside that home may have already been underway when the first fire crew showed up and found nothing. They were feet away from a crime scene that hadn't fully ignited yet, and they walked away. It's the kind of detail that haunts a case. A window where someone might have been caught, stopped, prevented, and it just slipped past everyone. So I want to leave you with some questions, because that's really what this case comes down to. If those Reddit posts really are Mandy's words, what does it tell us about the quiet endurance so many people show inside relationships that look fine from the outside? How many families are we looking at right now, smiling in photos, posting vacation videos, while one partner is holding on by threads only they can feel? And what pushes a person from resentment, defensiveness, even quiet suffering, into an act this total, this final, this violent? Was this always where Kris was heading? Some slow, invisible unraveling that finally broke? Or was there a specific moment, a specific piece of shame that flipped a switch that could never be turned back off. I want to know what you think happened inside that house between Thursday night and Friday morning. Was this always inevitable, building for years, or did something specific tip him over the edge in those final weeks? Drop your theory in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more cases like this, ones that go past the headlines and actually dig into the psychology behind them, subscribe to Psychology of Crime, because this is exactly the kind of story we're here to unpack.